In a small town where everyone knew each other's struggles, Mike ran a modest barbershop that barely kept the lights on. Despite his own financial hardships, he started offering free haircuts to people looking for jobs, knowing how a fresh look could boost their confidence. When a quiet, elderly man walked in needing a trim for a job interview, Mike treated him with the same care he gave all his customers. 3 months later, the man returned with news that would change Mike's entire life, proving that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can lead to the most unexpected rewards. Hi everyone, welcome to Mystic Tales. Today, I'm excited to share a new story with you. Mike wiped the sweat from his forehead as he counted the day's earnings. $50. That was all he made today at his small barber shop on Pine Street. The shop needed repairs badly. The paint peeled off the walls and one of his 2 chairs had a broken footrest, but Mike could not afford to fix anything right now. His phone buzzed with another bill reminder. The electricity company wanted their payment. Mike sighed and put the phone away, wondering how he would manage this month. Through his storefront window, he watched people hurrying past. Many looked tired, carrying papers that looked like resumes. The town's biggest factory had closed last month. Mike remembered how hard it was when he first looked for work. He knew how a simple haircut could make someone feel more confident. But many people could not even afford that now. That evening, Mike put a sign in his window. "Free haircuts for job seekers," it read. His sister Sarah called him crazy when she saw it. "You can barely pay your own bills," she said. "Sometimes you have to help others, even when times are tough," Mike told her. "Maybe it will come back around somehow." He smiled, but worry lined his face. The next morning, 3 people waited outside his shop before he opened. Each carried papers for job interviews. Mike welcomed them in with a warm smile. Tom, his first client, hadn't had a haircut in months. He had an interview at a warehouse, but couldn't spare $20 for a trim. Mike worked carefully, making sure every detail was perfect. As Tom looked in the mirror after, his eyes grew wet. "I actually feel like I might have a chance now," he said softly. Mike patted his shoulder and wished him luck. Word spread quickly about Mike's free haircuts in the small town. More people started coming in, each with their own story of struggle and hope. Mike started opening his shop an hour earlier. He wanted to help as many job seekers as he could. His regular paying customers still came too, and many left extra tips after seeing his kindness. One rainy Tuesday morning, an elderly man walked into the shop. His clothes were simple but clean. His gray hair needed a trim, and he spoke very softly when he asked about the free haircuts. "I have a job interview tomorrow," the old man said. "I saw your sign. I hope it's okay that I came in." He held up a worn folder with his resume inside. Mike guided him to the chair and wrapped the cape around him. The man sat quietly as Mike worked, barely speaking except to say thank you now and then. As Mike trimmed carefully around his ears, he noticed the man's shoes were old but well polished. His shirt collar was frayed but pressed perfectly. This was someone who took pride in himself. The old man watched in the mirror as Mike finished the cut. His eyes showed gratitude, but something else too. Something Mike couldn't quite figure out. "How much do I owe you?" the man asked, reaching for his wallet. Mike shook his head and smiled. "It's free, remember? Just do your best at the interview." The old man stood up slowly and brushed off his clothes. He thanked Mike again and walked out into the rain. Mike watched him disappear down the street. That night, Mike ate a simple dinner of soup and bread. His own bills were piling up, but seeing people walk out of his shop with renewed confidence made it worth it. 3 months passed. Mike kept giving free haircuts while barely making ends meet. He had to skip his morning coffee to save money. Some days he wondered if he could keep his shop open. One morning he found a letter in his mailbox. It was from the building's owner. The rent was going up next month. Mike's hands shook as he read the numbers. Sarah stopped by that afternoon with some homemade sandwiches. "You need to think about yourself too," she said, watching him eat. "Maybe it's time to stop the free haircuts." A customer sat in Mike's chair, getting ready for a job interview at the local supermarket. Mike focused on his work, trying not to think about the rent letter in his pocket. The bell above the door chimed. Mike looked up to see the elderly man from 3 months ago. He wore a neat gray suit this time, and his eyes were bright with purpose. "I hoped you would still be here," the old man said. "I got that job, but that's not why I came back." He placed a business card on the counter. Mike picked up the card. It was from Wilson & Sons Manufacturing, the biggest employer in the next town over. The old man's name was Robert Wilson. "The day I came in, I was testing something," Robert said. "I wanted to see how people treat others who seem to have nothing. You showed true kindness." Mike remembered the quiet man in his chair that rainy day. Now everything made more sense. The well-polished shoes, the pressed shirt, the careful way he spoke. Sarah watched from the corner, her sandwich forgotten in her hands. The shop felt very quiet as Robert Wilson continued to speak. Robert sat down in the empty barber chair. "Our company is opening a new factory here in town. We need services for our workers, including a good barbershop." "I want to offer you a deal," Robert continued. "We have a space in our new building. It could be yours, rent-free for the first year. A proper shop, not this old place." Mike leaned against his counter, trying to take it all in. "But why me? There are bigger shops in town." His voice was quiet, unsure. Robert smiled. "Because you help people without expecting anything back. That's rare. My workers would be lucky to have someone like you." "The space needs work," Robert explained. "But we will help with repairs and new equipment. You can keep your prices fair for working families." Sarah stepped forward. "Mike, this could save you. Your bills, the rent increase." She touched her brother's arm gently. Mike looked around his small shop. The peeling paint, the broken chair, the old mirrors. But it had been his home for 5 years. "Can I think about it?" Mike asked. Robert nodded and stood up. "Take 2 days. Call my office when you decide." He left his card on the counter. That night, Mike sat in his quiet shop after closing. He thought about all the people who needed haircuts, but couldn't afford them. A bigger shop meant helping more people. He picked up his phone and looked at Robert's card. Sometimes kindness did come back around, just not in ways you expected. 2 months later, Mike stood in his new shop. Clean walls, fresh paint, and 3 working chairs filled the bright space. Large windows let in natural light. He kept his prices low, just as he promised. The free haircuts for job seekers continued every Tuesday and Wednesday morning. Robert's workers got special discounts too. Tom, his client from months ago, now worked at the new factory. He sat in Mike's chair for a trim. "Remember when I came in for that warehouse interview?" he asked, smiling in the mirror. More chairs meant Mike could hire 2 new barbers. He trained them himself, making sure they understood that kindness mattered more than quick profits. "Sarah helped with the bookkeeping now. Your bills are all paid on time," she said one evening, checking the accounts. "And you still help people who need it." The old shop's sign hung on one wall, reminding Mike of where he started. Robert stopped by sometimes, always sitting in Mike's chair, always paying full price plus a tip. "You taught me something too," Robert told him during a haircut. "Success means nothing if we forget to help others along the way." Mike's phone didn't buzz with bill reminders anymore, but he kept his simple ways, remembering the days when he counted coins to keep the lights on. Every morning he still put out the free haircuts for job seekers sign. Some habits were worth keeping, no matter how much things changed. In the end, Mike learned that doing good things didn't always bring instant rewards. But sometimes, when you least expected it, kindness found its way back to you. Loved this story? Tap that like button and subscribe to Mystic Tales for more. Let us know how this story made you feel with a single word in the comments.